let's jump into something that could really shake things up in the AI world, specifically when it comes to coding.
Yeah, definitely.
We've got this research paper, and they're making a pretty bold claim.
Okay.
They're saying smaller AI models, like the little guys, can actually go toe-to-toe with the giants, the ones dominating the field right now.
Interesting.
And you want to know the secret?
What's the catch?
It's all in how they're trained, how they learn.
Okay, so like a new training regimen for AI. Because for a while now, it seemed like bigger is always better, right? Just cram as much data as possible into these massive models and they, I don't know, absorb it somehow.
Right, like trying to gain knowledge by swallowing an entire library without actually, reading any of the books.
Exactly. Just pure data overload.
But this paper, and this is the interesting part, this comes from researchers at Microsoft, so not exactly a bunch of amateurs.
Right. They've got some weight behind them.
They're challenging that whole bigger is better idea. They're saying, hold on, what if instead of force-feeding AI a fire hose of information, we focus on quality over quantity? What if we teach them more like how humans learn with structure, with well-organized information?
So instead of the whole library, you're giving them like a carefully selected textbook.
You got it. Hence the title of the paper, and I'm not making this up. Textbooks are all you need.
Catchy.
Oh.
So what does that look like in the AI world? What's a textbook for artificial intelligence?
That's where it gets really wild.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
They actually use 3 main sources to create this textbook quality data, and get this, they named their AI model Phi-1. Yeah, Phi-1. So first they took those massive code data sets, think GitHub, places where there's just mountains of code, and they used another AI to filter it down, to find the cleanest, the most well-written examples.
So like an AI librarian picking out the best material for a coding syllabus.
Exactly. It's like AI teaching AI. Pretty meta, right?
That's wild. What about the second source?
Okay, this is even more out there. They use GPT 3.5,
Wait, like the language model?
the one and only.
Yeah.
But here's the twist. They used it to generate entirely new textbooks, like from scratch. Algorithms, coding concepts, the whole 9 yards.
So GPT 3.5 wasn't the student in this scenario, it was the author.
Precisely. Writing the textbooks for this new AI.
Okay, hold on. Now I need to know what the third source is. This is incredible.
All right, remember those practice problems you'd find at the end of a chapter in a textbook?
Yeah, the ones you'd hope you could skip, but you knew you shouldn't.
Exactly. They had GPT 3.5 generate thousands of those, but tailored for coding, for Phi-1, to really test its understanding.
So they built an entire digital school for this AI, complete with AI-written textbooks and endless practice problems. That's amazing.
And here's the real kicker. They did all of this with a surprisingly small amount of data. We're talking significantly smaller than what's typically used to train these massive AI models.
Really? How much smaller are we talking?
Well, other models are trained on data sets with hundreds of billions of tokens.
Tokens.
Yeah, that's how we measure the units of information in these models. Think of it like,
Hold on, break that down for me and everyone listening. What's a token in this context?
sure thing. Imagine chopping up a sentence into individual words and punctuation marks. Each one of those would be a token.
Got it. So like the building blocks of language for the AI.
Exactly. And typically, more tokens mean more for the AI to learn from.
So how many tokens did Phi-1 use?
7 billion.
Wait, 7 billion? That's it. That's a huge difference.
Huge. And that's what makes this research so fascinating. Phi-1 is this relatively tiny AI, but they've shown that it's not just the quantity of the data that matters, but the quality and how it's organized. It's like that old saying, it's not about the size of the library, it's how you use it.
I'm really curious to see how it actually performed. Did all this textbook learning translate into real coding skills for this little AI?
So we've got this smaller model, carefully curated data, the works. But how does it actually stack up? Does all this textbook learning actually make it a coding whiz?
Well, the results are pretty impressive. They put Phi-1 through a bunch of standard coding tests, things like human eval and MBPP.
So like standardized tests, but for AI, to see how well they can code.
Exactly. They have to understand instructions, write code to solve problems, that kind of thing.
And how did Phi-1 do?
Let's just say it passed with flying colors.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. It wasn't just passing, it was often doing better than models many times its size.
Really? The ones trained on those massive data sets we talked about.
The very same. It's like David and Goliath, but David came prepared with some serious coding skills.
Okay, but now I'm hearing the skeptics in my head.
Oh, I know those skeptics. What are they saying?
They're saying, hold on, maybe it just memorized the answers from all those practice problems. Like that student who crams the night before but doesn't really understand the material.
Right, right. It's a valid concern. And you know what? The researchers behind this study, they totally anticipated that.
Oh, I bet. So what do they do?
They took a two-pronged approach to address it. Think double-checking their work, but like on a whole other level.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me. What were these safeguards?
First, they brought in a completely separate team of researchers, fresh eyes, to design a brand new coding test.
So like a pop quiz with material Phi 1 had never seen.
Precisely. It was all about testing Phi 1's ability to generalize, to take what it knew and apply it to new problems, not just spit back memorized code.
That makes sense. What was the second safeguard?
This one's even more hardcore. They went back to Phi 1's original training data, like all those textbooks and exercises, and they meticulously removed any problems that even remotely resembled the questions on both the standard tests and the new independent test.
Wow, talk about thorough. So they basically eliminated any chance that Phi 1 had seen something similar before.
Exactly. No cheating allowed. They wanted to see genuine learning and problem-solving skills. And the best part, even with these stricter conditions, the results were still incredible. Phi 1 was still going toe-to-toe with the big guys.
So this wasn't just a fluke. This little AI, trained on its carefully selected textbook material, was proving it could really code.
Absolutely. And it gets even more interesting.
Or interesting, how?
They started noticing that Phi 1 could do things that it hadn't explicitly been trained to do, like they taught it the basics, and it started writing poetry.
Wait, what? Going off script, how is that even possible?
In a way, yes. Remember when we talked about Pig Game, the library for making video games?
Yeah, and TinCare, the one for building interfaces. You said those weren't part of its core training.
Exactly. But when they prompted Phi 1, it was able to use those libraries effectively. It could even handle some basic chat functionality, understanding and responding to simple instructions written in plain English. Again, not something it was explicitly trained on.
Okay, this is seriously impressive. So we have this AI that's exceeding expectations, doing things it wasn't even trained to do. Is this some kind of fluke? Or is there something much deeper happening here? This feels like a big deal. Are we seeing some kind of deeper understanding of coding emerge here? Is that how Phi 1 is branching out like this?
That's the really exciting part. It seems like by training AI with this carefully structured textbook-style data, we might be tapping into a whole new level of learning.
So it's not just memorizing lines of code.
No, not at all. It's about truly understanding the concepts, the why behind the how.
And that could change everything, right? Not just for how we develop AI, but maybe even how we think about education for everyone.
Exactly.
Okay, but for those of us who aren't, coding whizzes, why does this matter? What's the real-world impact if this whole textbook approach really takes off?
Well, let's start with accessibility. Right now, training these big, powerful AI models is incredibly resource intensive. You need these massive data sets, tons of computing power, it's a whole thing.
It's like needing $1 billion rocket to go to the grocery store.
Basically. But imagine if you could get the same or even better results with smaller, more efficient models trained on this carefully curated data. It would open up AI development to so many more people, smaller companies, researchers, everyone.
Now that's a future I can get behind. But what about the AI we interact with every day? The coding assistants, those customer service bots, even just those virtual assistants on our phones. Would this textbook approach change how they work too?
Absolutely. Imagine AI that's not just capable, but it can actually explain itself.
Because it's learned from a strong foundation.
Precisely. It understands your intent, it can adapt to new situations, it can really collaborate with you.
So no more canned responses. It can actually hold a conversation.
Exactly.
This has been an amazing deep dive, but before we wrap up, any caveats? We don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Of course. It's important to remember that Phi 1, as amazing as it is still specialized. It's focused on Python programming.
Right, not writing the next great novel just yet.
Not yet. And while it's shown it can generalize within that domain, we need more research to see if this textbook approach works for other programming languages or even completely different fields.
So the big question is, can we scale this up?
That's what everyone wants to know. If we can, it could change everything. Not just how we build AI, but how we learn, how we understand the world.
There you have it. Could carefully crafted textbooks be the key to unlocking AI's true potential? Could this change how we learn, work, live with technology in the future? Something to think about. Until next time, happy learning.